bread. And almost unlike the case of a biscuit, in fact, in the case of a biscuit, that mixing is not much of a problem. Okay, um, or that not significant a problem. Similarly, in the case of bread, it is, though the dough preparation is important, you know, the major what to say factor is the yeast added. After the gluten is developed, it is the yeast and the activity of the yeast. But in the case of cakes, what is important is that both the physical method and the chemical method play a very important role. That is, physical method is incorporation of air, aeration as you call. Okay, aeration by physical methods, that is by whipping and beating, is very important. In fact, that is the major what to say factor which what to say affects the quality of the cake. In fact, I think in the case of an angel cake and all, you do not add any leavening agent. Am I right? Have you done angel cake in your house at least?
No, sir.
How about the other people, uh, Febin or Nevin? Hello?
No, sir.
Don't make. Okay, fine. So we'll see it later. That is, you know, in the case of a bread, a leavening agent like yeast is a must. In the case of a biscuit, a leavening agent like soda, whatever it is a must. However, in the case of cakes, you can also make cakes without a leavening agent, but you cannot make a cake normally without eggs. Of course, now you have the variants like the eggless cake, but the problem with the eggless cakes is the structure and the texture. Because basically, what happens? I don't know. Let us see. What happens in this case is that the egg that you add, the egg white of it contains the egg protein, the ovalbumins, and these on the one of the characteristic features of the ovalbumin is that they they undergo shear denaturation. That is, just by whipping itself, they get denatured and they are stiff. They don't fall down. Have you ever observed beating the egg? Yes.
Yes, sir.
Okay. So what happens during that time? Yes. No, for example, try something like a milk or try something. You have been doing your, maybe doing your Mysore pa or any other thing. Try doing that and try beating egg, right? Both are proteins. Now, which stands stiff? Nobody has observed. Nobody goes to the kitchen. Nobody eats. Yes. Hello. See, respond quickly.
Sir, while beating the egg, egg yolk and the white part and the yellow part get mixed.
Okay. What happens to the white part if I'm going to beat it? Or simple. Have
Form
you? Huh?
something similar to formula product.
Home is observed. The same you don't observe in the case of milk because milk again contains protein, right? You don't get the same structure in the case of milk. Why?
Yes, sir.
Milk, you have done your paneer, khova, etc. So the characteristic of milk protein is that it gets denatured only by a change in the pH, right?
Yes,
Yes,
sir.
no?
Yes, sir.
Or by slightly by shear, not that much by shear. Whereas the characteristic of egg protein is that it denatures by variation of the pH. But at the same time, even shear or physical, what to say, treatments leads to denaturation, which is a very, very important aspect of egg. And that is why when you go for, I think I've given some of you eggless cakes and all. When you are going to manufacture eggless cake, the main characteristic feature of the structure and the texture of the egg has to be somehow managed. Fine. So in the case of the importance of mixing in the case of cake is that should be a complete dispersion of the ingredients, okay, and the particle size also plays a very important role. So all the ingredients have to be dispersed, and air incorporation to the mix is very important. So both the things I think I already told you, this air incorporation, one is denatures and also forms a foam. The incorporation of air takes place during the rapid period of whipping that you observe. And the second thing is by, your leavening action of the baking powder. Okay. So when you make cake, now in the case of cake, a cake manufacturer, what are the things you have? Okay. For example, the ingredients are fat, sugar, egg, and egg, of course, flour. Finally, your leavening agent. Now, depending on, now in this case, I already told you, fat, sugar, egg and flour are important. Leavening agent is important, but then normally leavening agent is not supposed to be added at the start, because I think when it is going to be added, carbon dioxide is liberated. So leavening agents are supposed to be added only at the end of the process. That is after mixing, when you are just going to put it in the oven, a minute before it, you add the baking powder or the leavening agent, just, whisk it and put it. Whisking, is something like just a gentle movement with a spoon or any paddle. Whereas whipping is a very harsh, rapid incorporation of air. Okay. Now here I have my fat, I have my sugar, I have my egg and the flour. Now, cakes can be manufactured, or various cakes can be manufactured, as we have seen last time in the case of a biscuit also, depending on whichever the method they are being added. That is one, this one, like depending on whether whichever the addition, that is whether, now what is the sequence? Now the, okay, say, write it like A, B, sorry, okay, like this. Okay. Now this comes the last. Now in this sequence, when the sequence of addition, whether it is A to B, that is taking fat, then adding sugar, then adding egg, and finally flour, or whether I add these two, then that is what are the sequences possible, like A, or for what to say, I take the flour, okay, I add it to something like D, C. You can have a lot of combinations, right? D, C, B, A, or it can be, that is, I first take A, to which I add B, to which I add C, to which I add D. Understood? Yes, no?
Yes, sir.
That is, I take the fat, I cream it by adding sugar. To this, then I add my egg, to which then I add finally my flour. This is one of the possible combination. The other possible combination is something like, what to say, C plus D. That is, I beat the egg, okay. This beaten egg, flour is added to the beaten egg, and this is added to P plus A. Okay, that is the creamed fat. Okay, or what I do, this egg itself, I separate it as yolk and white. Okay, I beat the white separately. Then I add every other thing. Then I add my yolk and flour. So there are a lot of these combinations possible. The sequence of addition of the ingredients which are possible. Now, depending on the sequence of addition, we have the various types of um, cake manufacture. Okay. So first one is what is called as the sugar batter method. As the name suggests, what does it mean? Sugar is creamed with fat, and then to that the rest of them are added. That is, an emulsion of oil in water is made with air bubbles in the oil phase. All the other materials are dispersed or dissolved in the aqueous phase. So what is done? Fat and sugar are mixed together, creamed, and to this then, the rest of the things are added. So the time taken for the step is dependent on the mixer, type of shortening, etc. The batter can be controlled by mixing to a specific gravity. So what I do first in this sugar batter method, fat and sugar are added. They are creamed. To this then is added the egg, then followed by the flour. The second, no, okay. So this is the first step is creaming. Second thing is liquid egg is added in small portion, as I already told you. So I take the cream, add then liquid egg, beat the liquid egg. To the liquid egg, I add the, no, it does not make, I add the cream, beat it, then add the flour. Hope I'm clear, right? Hello?
So liquid egg once more.
Yeah, liquid egg. Okay, so basically what I say, I think I have already told, no? I make a cream of fat and sugar. The next, parallelly, I beat the egg. Okay. This to the beaten egg is then added, whichever way it is. I add the beaten egg to the cream, beat it, then add the flour, or, I take the liquid egg, beat it, then add the cream and flour, whichever way it is. Okay. So addition of egg should be done carefully. I to prevent curdling of the batter. That is much more important. That is, curdling of the batter. That is what is curdling. It has to be uniformly dispersed instead of if it is not uniformly dispersed, and what to say, if there is a faster addition, that is, liquid egg has to be added slowly to the cream, beaten properly, and temperatures greater than around 21 degrees centigrade. Because if I'm going to keep a lower temperature, I think when I'm going to keep a lower temperature, also my egg becomes very thick. The yolk and other things become thick. Okay. So, and a faster addition. So in the curdling of the egg batter, temperature of the egg should be at room temperature. Okay. And other thing is slow addition. Okay. So well-made batter should have a velvety appearance. This all, as I already told you, we'll do it in the lab to see what is how to do. Okay. So fine. So I add the fat and sugar. Then I add the flour. Then I add finally the liquid egg. Okay. And then at the end of the day, okay, I add the flavor, the color if at all needed, and the leavening agent, slightly, gently mix it and put it on the oven. So the advantage of the method is that efficient incorporation of large volumes of air in the form of minuscule cells. Delay in the hydration of flour and solubilization of sugar due to coating of fat. What do you mean by this? Here what we do, we take the fat, we cream it we take the fat, we put sugar in it. To that then you add the flour. Now I think I've already told you, fat and sugar prevent gluten formation. So what happens when I'm going to cream and then add wheat flour, the gluten formation is not there. Why? In the case of cake, you should have, it should be sponge and soft and sort of, it should crumble. You cannot have a spongy or a chewy type of taste or a texture that we observe in the case of a bread. So, one thing is air is incorporated effectively. Why? I'm beating the liquid eggs separately. Okay. near absence of flour got the relativity. So mixing time is important. Now over mixing is also a problem. What is a mixing ideal time? If I'm going to do it now, mixing basically what is done. Initially air is incorporated, and when I'm going to beat it further, what basically happens is that larger air bubbles are broken down to small air bubbles, which gives that desired texture. But then what might later happen is that if I'm going to continuously beat, these small air bubbles again can coalesce with each other, making it a large bubble, and which means that the air escapes out. So this is one of the problems or a defect. That is, you cannot over mix the cake, because over mixing will also lead to a improper crumb texture, and the rise of the what is going to happen, the rise will not be proper. The what to say, the structure of the cake is not going to be proper. So total mixing time for the creaming method will range from 15 to 20 minutes. Initial creaming is 8 to 10 minutes. Second stage of incorporation of egg is 5 to 6 minutes, and the milk and flour is again 5 to 6 minutes. So again, as I said, milk is added too quickly, or when the egg is added too quickly, it will cause curdling of the batter. So milk or egg has to be slowly added. So this is the sugar batter. As I said, what is sugar batter or creaming? First I take the sugar and fat, then go for the addition of the rest of the thing. The second method, the flour batter, what is done? Shortening and the flour are creamed. Hope you are able to find out the difference, right? Yes, no?
Yes, sir.
So in the first step, in the first method, I add the sugar and the fat, I beat it. To that, then I add the flour or the egg. Here, what I am doing, I take the flour and the fat, I beat it. To this, then I add the rest of the things. The egg and sugar are simultaneously whipped at a medium speed. So remember what I am telling. These two together, these two together, then the other things are mixed out. So the sugar egg foam is then combined with the flour shortening mixture, after which the other things are added. So here, uh, the first this thing, fat and sugar, then egg, then flour. Here, flour and fat, egg and sugar. So one added to the other. So this is the other method of manufacturing. So the ratio of flour to fat used in the batter is 400 of flour to 450 of fat by weight. So normally the amount of, normally I think you know your cakes contain a high amount of sugar and a high amount of fat. So the flour is comparatively less. Whole egg is mixed with the own weight of sugar. So here 400 parts of flour, 450 parts of fat, and here equal weights of sugar and egg. So this is the thing. Just a minute. Sorry. Okay. So, what I was telling, in the flour batter method, okay, I take the shortening and the flour, the egg and the sugar, and the weight is 400 grams of flour to 450 parts of fat and equal volumes of egg and this thing. Again, the same thing here is sugar and egg. Too much air into the sugar and egg should not be there. Again, the thing is that all the air will escape. So what is the advantages of this? This method achieves a thorough dispersion of the shortening throughout the batter and produces an extremely fine grain and uniform texture. Reduces the possibility of curdling because what you do there, you take fat and then add the egg. Here, but you are separately beating the egg. So there is nothing like, you know, faster addition, slower addition, etc. Agreed? Yes, no? Hello?
Yes.
That is, in the first case, what you're doing, I take the cream. See, simple. Whatever I tell is something like trying to. Can somebody tell how does sugar taste?
Sweet, sir.
What is sweetness? Can you explain what is sweetness? So this is the problem that you and me both are there. Because since you have not done the lab, what actually happening is I am finding it difficult to explain. For example, they say, in standard picture dialogue, can you, for a visually challenged person, can you tell what orange is? Can you explain what is orange color? Yes, tell me.
No.
What is orange? This is what I am finding myself here, because since you don't have the practical thing, whatever I say, as I said, maybe you are coming the following week, right? We'll do it so that you can understand what I am telling. Because unless, as I said, no, unless you have tasted sugar, you do not know what sweetness is. But then if I'm asking you to explain what sweetness is, how do you explain sweetness? Or how do you explain bitterness? So some of these things have to be felt. Whatever, and as I said, in the case of a biscuit, bread, whatever you are doing here, it's all practical. So here, whatever the theory, unless you do on your own or you have seen it, it is impossible to, put these things into your head. That's obvious because, unless you have done it, for example, something like, can you have an online course on swimming?
No, sir.
So it is something like that. It is literally the same. An online course on swimming, online course on driving, etc. Unless you drive, unless you swim, you do not know what the problem is. So going on theoretically is of no use. So we'll see once you come. Fine. So now in the first process, what we are doing is that we are taking the cream. To the cream, then I am adding the liquid egg and beating. So there, the sequence of addition, the temperature of addition, whether I'm adding it fast or slow is a matter. Whereas in the second process, what I'm doing, I'm taking the liquid egg and beating. So there is nothing called as fast or slow addition of egg because egg is the starting material. Okay. So to this, then I add my flour, etc. So the curdling problem or the temperature of addition problem is not there. And higher levels of sugar and liquid are possible than with the creaming method. Why? As I already told you, when I'm going to beat the egg separately, I reach a certain level of height. Because of the denaturation, you will get a certain foam structure. So we know very well that fat or sugar are defoaming agents. So what is happening in the earlier stage, I mix fat and sugar. To this, then when I'm going to add my fat, my egg, the level of air incorporation is affected because sugar or fat will try to drive away air. So I'm trying to put in air in a system which does not allow air. That is the first method, that is creaming method. In this method, what I'm doing, I am incorporating the air first by beating the egg. To this, then, when I add the other things, what is going to happen? There might be a certain level of defoaming taking place, but at the same time, since the foam has already been set, there will be a slight reduction in the volume. Understood? Yes, no?
Yes, sir.
This is followed, for example, your Devil's Delight or some of these chocolate cakes, no? What do you call it? I'm able to. Some of them which have a very high amount of chocolate and you know Devil's Delight, right? No. Yes, no?
No, sir.
Sure. Can you name some of the cakes which have a high amount of chocolate? Hello? Yes. Hello? Which are the cakes? Black Forest, etc. No? Hello?
Yes, sir.
So the Black Forest and some of these cakes, they have, they are very sweet, a very high amount of fat, and they have a very high amount of cocoa, right? Yes, no?
Yes, sir.
No idea.
Yes, sir.
So these which contain a very high fat and very high sugar, they are prepared by this method. That is what I do. That's something I already told you. No, I beat the egg separately. To the beaten egg, I add the other things. So what happens? The structure has been already set. Okay, so what I do, I beat the egg. No, the structure would have been developed because of the beating, that roughness and the solid thing comes. To that, then I add the rest of it. So this will ensure that the structure is not that much affected. Whereas in the earlier case, I already told you, right? Air incorporation is I am taking something which does not allow air, and I'm trying to put air into it. So it means that the air incorporation is less. Okay, so the high sugar, high fat types of product like Black Forest, etc., is made by this method. Okay, so but two mixing bowls are required. Why? As I said, in the first bowl, I'll beat my egg first. To that, then I add my flour. In the other bowl, I will whisk my sugar and fat. Then what I do, I take the sugar and fat and add it to this and again continue beating. And at the end of the day, I add my, what is that? I add the leavening agent. In this method, earlier method, what I do, I cream, I fat, to the fat I add sugar. To this mixture, I add my egg and over it then I add my flour. Are you clear? The sequence?
Yes, sir.
So this sequence is first of the creaming. The second one is I think I already told you. And you have the single stage method. What is single stage method? Add everything and start beating. Okay. So a fit beater, ingredients are blended together at a low speed, then at a very high speed, and again at a low speed. These are the three things. And emulsion method is sugar and shortening are creamed together. Milk is then added with beating, then addition of flour, then addition of egg. Hope you are able to visualize, right? Because I have already told you sugar, fat, egg, and flour. The sequence of addition describes or decides the quality of the final product. Okay. So here what I do, sugar and shortening, milk, then flour, finally egg. In the first method, sugar and shortening, then egg, then flour, right? If you see the emulsion method, sorry, if you see the creaming method, sugar and fat, followed by egg, followed by flour. Here it is sugar and fat, flour, then egg. Okay, now this will obviously it will give a what to say? It will give a raise which is much lesser than the other three. Okay. So the structure of the cake, forms is dependent on simple. The speed with which air is incorporated and the time to which air is incorporated. Okay, that is whether it is faster or slower beating and whether how long are you doing it. Now in this case, a longer time of beating will result in a slower beating sometimes is not desirable. A longer time is also not desirable because longer time will lead to coalescence and escape of the breakdown of the foam. Okay. Fine. So you have, cake batters can be seen as air fat dispersion. I think you already know. Angel food cake is a foam style cake. What is a foam? We have already seen here. Emulsion method of foam, where the other things are there. So cake is leavened only by air and steam. Okay, these are derived from egg white. Okay, which sugar is the other thing. Fine. So egg white to sugar is equal volumes, and flour is only 15%, which is something like 1:3, if roughly. Okay, cake flour plays a secondary role. So here, as I already told you, the beating, physical incorporation of air is very important in the case of an angel food cake. So here what I do, I take the cake, I beat it, okay, to which then cream of tartar is added. So once the egg white forms, you have get a slight peak, then, you can literally see lines over it. To this, then the rest of this are added, and then it is baked without the addition of baking powder. This is what is observed in this case. Okay. So they are baked at temperatures between 100 or around 200 degrees centigrade. Browning of the crust is not as dark as the other cases. Maillard browning is also not that great because of the cream of tartar and the acidic pH, because here normally we add some amount of vinegar. Okay. So again, as I said, come, we'll see or we'll do it together. Okay. Now, macaroons are again formed by the same process. That is, we beat the egg to which sugar is added. Am I right? Now, don't tell we do not know what macaroon is. Yes, no. Hope you know what is a macaroon, right?
Yes.
Okay, fine. Okay, so, foam cake, angel cake is by beating the egg white with no addition of existing. The second thing is a sponge cake where white and yolk of the yolk is separated and then beat with the sugar. Now, where you do, as I already told you, something like your Devil's Delight or your Black Forest. Now, what they do, the egg white is separated and beaten separately. Egg yolk, which is lesser than, again is beaten with other things. So when you mix, as I already told you, what happens is that this can take in more amount of sugar and fat. The sugar, salt, flavoring adder is added to the beaten egg, and then the flour is folded. Okay, what do you mean by that? I beat the egg first, then add my sugar, etc. After this beating, I add slowly. What is folding? Slowly, what is it? Slowly add it and beat it. Okay, it is folded. What do you mean by folding? gently by hand without or a gentle mixing, not an excessive mixing. Okay, so the beaten egg is then added and then you get a better or volume. Are you clear? That is white and yolk are separated. White is beaten in one vessel. The yolk is beaten and to this is added sugar, etc. Okay. And to that then is added your flour. After addition of egg yolk beaten, to that I add my sugar and other things, then my flour. This beaten one is then added to the already beaten egg white and then again whisk and finally the addition of baking powder. Is it clear? This is almost similar to
Yes, sir.
your batter method, whatever you have seen here, no? It's almost the same like this. Sorry, no. This one, no? Yeah. Oh, which is the second one? I think the second one, right? No, not sugar and egg. The fourth one, like, emulsion method and things like that. Okay. Sugar or shortening or cream to that thing. It's almost similar to what you do in this case. Okay. So the other procedure is to beat the whole egg. Now here what you do is that this we normally do for your black forest, etc. The white and the yolk are separated. Instead of that, I beat the whole egg, which have been tempered to a temperature of 27. Now, in our case, there is nothing called as tempering at 27 because already our temperatures are above 27. Now, what I do, same way as I already told you, beat the egg, then add the sugar. After the egg foam is achieved, then add the rest of it, then add the shortening, and finally you get a desirable compound. So this is one thing. Then you have the chiffon cake, which is a foam style cake and a shortened cake. So what is done? Egg white is beaten first with the leavening and with the leavening. Then egg white is in a separate bowl. All the other things, including sugar, um, fat, everything in the second one. Then the both are mixed. That is egg white separately, other things separately, then mixed together. Okay. So chiffon cakes are baked in an uncreased tube pan. And these cakes are cooled upside down, just like angel cake or sponge cake. You come and do, we'll see. That is that. Then you have the ganache cake, which is a light cake with made with everything. Okay. It is you add clarified butter. Okay. So this is sufficient, I feel. Okay. What are the factors in this case? As I already told you, the weights of normally, as I already told you, your flour, maybe the amount of sugar is maybe 1.2 times or something more than that. Fat is also higher as compared to, like if you have one part of egg, I add one part of sugar. So no, sorry, for one part of flour, something like more than one part or 1.5 parts of your fat and sugar. And sugar and eggs are almost the same size, etc. The combinations, you know that. Okay. So cake pans, normally, now what are these things? Why are they mentioned cake pan? I think you know, you can have a thick pan or a thin pan. When the pan is very thin, what is going to happen is, since it is a conductive heat transfer, here, I think I already told you in the case of a bread and other things, I told that the conveyor can be a mesh type or a solid type. Solid type when you want a conductive heat transfer, and mesh type when you want to have a convective heat transfer. Now, in the case of cake, there cannot be a convective heat transfer because it has a pourable consistency. So I have to put it in a pan. What should be the characteristic of the pan? It should be heavier at the bottom. Okay. So conformation is dependent on the degree of heating that occurs when the cake is first placed. So it should be heavy and the bottom should be very thick. Okay. Normally, the bottom is greased to prevent any sticking. Ungreased side provide traction, allowing the rising mixture to reach the full volume. What we have to do, we normally grease the bottom. Okay. But the sides are generally not. That is the more, because if you have too much of, we'll see it in the troubleshooting or fault. If I'm going to grease the sides also, there'll be a not proper lice. It will start shrinking. Okay. So you also add wax, the paper which we normally use. Okay. Angel food cake and sponge cake can be baked in a tube pan. So this and all, Okay. What is the testing for doneness? That is, how do I know that the cake is cooked? Normally what I do, you put a spoon, pierce and take it out. If something does not stick, it means that the cake is baked. When cakes, so the other method for shortened style cake is that they start to wrinkle at the pan edge. What do you mean by wrinkle at the pan edge? They try to come out of the pan. Have you ever observed it? That is, normally when you add, they'll all be at till the end of the pan. The sides, they'll be touching the sides of the pan. But then as the baking proceeds, they try to come off the wall of the pan. Have you ever observed?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so this is the one thing, and this is also observed in even our traditional sweets also. In your traditional sweets also, as it gets concentrated and as the shortened style cake. What's a shortened style cake? When the fat is higher, normally you will observe that it comes out and it will not stick to the bottom or the sides. It can be for your Mysore Pak, it can be even for your Sohan Papdi or any other thing. If you observe, the high fat products will, you can see it literally sort of floating. If at all, how many of you, by the way, know cooking? Yes? Hello? Nobody knows cooking? Even the girls? Hello? Maria, Sarah, are you there?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yeah, so you know at least some cooking?
Yes, sir. I know how to cook.
Okay, so normally, as I said, when you have a high fat, or something like your kesari and all, no? Have you ever seen what is kesari?
Yes, sir.
Or your Mysore Pak and things like that? When the fat is
sir.
high, you try beating. At the end of the day, what you will be observing is that everything comes away from the pan. Like they will not be sticking to the pan and will be trying sort of floating. The entire mass will be floating. It will not touch the pan. It can be even for your chutneys or something. Those chutneys which keep for a longer time, the more oil you add. So normally if you make your tomato chutney also with a high amount of oil, initially it will be sticking. But towards the end of the thing, when the oil becomes more because of the removal of this thing, again you will observe that it will never stick to the side or something. It will be, you can just transfer to any other vessel. Have you ever observed it? No.
Yes, sir.
So that is it. Fine. So this is a shortened style. What is a shortened high amount of fat? So normally shortened caker, a tensor instead in the cake comes out clean. Another method is that there is a gap formed between pan and the cake. Other thing is press the top of the cake like the finger. If it comes up, then again the cake has come properly. Okay. And again, as in every other thing, this is the most important, because again, when you observe, when you come to lab, you will try start eating the moment it's opened up. It is not for, there should be equilibration that need to be happening. Only if the moisture is equilibrated, then you will get a proper texture. At least 10 minutes for cooling, then everything else. Okay. Foam style cake is removed from the oven and cooled upside down. This is normally done for your other thing. So freestanding prevents the cake from collapsing on itself. This is for your angel cake, right? So that is the thing. Okay. The defects of it, I think you can go through the defects, right? Yes.